Before I share a few words of Torah, I will say as I describe this parsha, I want you to know that Kalakunin, our bat mitzvah for tomorrow, had a choice of whether she was going to read the parsha for Rosh Chodesh Nisan, for Shabbat HaChodesh, which is all about the foundations of the Passover celebration, or Parshat Tazria, which is the weekly portion, and you will know something about her when you understand that she chose Tazria, which is, as you will hear, a very challenging parsha for anyone, and especially a young person. So may we all be as courageous and curious as Kala is. Parshat Tazria focuses on menstrual bleeding and other bodily emissions and the accurate diagnosis and treatment of skin afflictions commonly known as leprosy. It is, in essence, all about private physical matters that the Torah deems important for the priest to know about in terms of functioning in a healthy community. It is the priests in this parsha who make the diagnoses and prescribe treatment, as they are the ones entrusted with ensuring communal health. They serve as, in some ways, physicians for the Israelite community. The power that they wield during biblical times is on display in this parsha, and really in the entire book of Vayikra, the entire book of Leviticus. For all ethical and idealistic people, one of the calls to action of this moment, a moment in history that is characterized by abuses of power, by celebrities, by priests, by CEOs, by politicians, and other privileged individuals, the call of this moment for ethical people is to pay more attention to the processes by which those who have power in our communities come to have it and choose to wield it. And this parsha can shed light on that. In recent weeks, there have been a slew of articles that you may have read about Michael Steinhardt, among the most prominent Jewish philanthropists in the world, co-founder of Taglit Birthright Israel, among many other initiatives, who has been accused by several women of sexual harassment over the course of decades, including women who work for Hillel and women who work for Hebrew Union College. According to his accusers, and even to his colleagues, Steinhardt has a relentless fixation on biological Jewish continuity, that is, the making of Jewish babies to ensure a Jewish future. This was the pretext for many of his humiliating and offensive comments to the professional women who crossed his path. He would ask them in all sorts of crude ways, what were they doing to ensure Jewish continuity? His fixation on this issue is fueled in part by the research of another alleged predator, sociologist Stephen Cohen, whose work on demographic trends has informed much of the strategic thinking of the Jewish nonprofit world. The rate of intermarriage is so high, Cohen's research alleges, that we are in an emergency situation, and if we do not create more Jewish babies, our people is not long for this world. This is the conclusion of these individuals. The power brokers of our Jewish communal life appointed themselves priests, diagnosed the infection of population decrease in our Jewish community as a function of the high intermarriage rate, and prescribed more Jewish babies. And it doesn't take much of a leap to understand how instrumental women's role would be in the administering of that prescription. With this prescription in hand, programs have abounded in our Jewish communal life that sought to put Jewish young people in intensive emotional situations in hopes that they would meet and marry and procreate. Birthright Israel is among the most prominent example. With programs like this, helped along by the magic of Israel and the implicit communal pressure that we have to marry fellow Jews, and the culture of college drinking, the objectification of Jewish women has also abounded in these settings. And in the halls of the institutions that created the programs like this, a similar environment persisted as well, as the reports of the last few weeks have revealed. Cohen and Steinhardt and those like them, and the people who have consumed their research and taken their money, which includes so many of us, really all who are passionate about the Jewish community. We all must pause and ask, as many very powerful Jewish female-authored articles have explored in recent months, how did we get here? And what can we do about it? You may or may not be aware that this is the 4th annual Infertility Awareness Shabbat in the Jewish community. And through an organization called Yesh Tikva, which is the Hebrew words for there is hope, every participating congregation, which includes ours, is committing to reflect on how we can better support women and families who struggle with infertility and pregnancy loss and infant loss, common and painful experiences that are shared by hundreds of families within Temple Israel, and I know people in this chapel, in this sanctuary. And in considering those individuals and families who face this pain every day, part of our work is to admit that the narrative that we have about Jewish continuity riding on the successful procreation through the vehicle of Jewish women is exacerbating their pain and making Jewish institutions less supportive environments than they ought to be. It is a narrative that we have ingested that's based on fear and anxiety. It is a narrative that negates the full personhood of women who do not have children for a wide variety of personal and medical reasons and circumstances. And hardest of all, it is a narrative that has been ingrained in us from our Torah. Our precious Tanakh, our Bible, is ripe with examples of Israelite women who struggle with infertility and who feel worthless and who are treated as worthless because they cannot produce children with their own bodies. From the first commandment in our Torah of Peru Uravu, be fruitful and multiply, through the story of Abraham and Sarah, and Rachel and Leah, and Hannah, and God's constant promises of progeny to our forefathers, these narratives have been understood to emphasize the importance of having children. The pain of the women in these stories is incidental. It is simply further evidence of how meaningless life is if one does not have children. And that is the actual infection. The most poisonous trend in our Jewish communities is that we ingest this toxic narrative at the expense of the humanity right before our eyes. And as a Mamlechet Kohanim, which is a nation of priests, in fact, each and every one of us, it is our responsibility to diagnose properly. These stories in the Bible are not just about procreation. They are about human pain and suffering that is aggravated by a narrow view of a meaningful life in general, and the expendability of women in particular. And the tikkun, the trufah, the medicine for all of these ills that I've spoken about is the same. It starts with a refocusing on the way that we read these ancient stories. The next time we read these stories, let us focus on Sarah's impossible choice, on Rachel's deepest pain, on Hannah's weeping and desperate prayers, and hear them as whole people. Let us then adjust the way that we view all the women in our Jewish community, correcting ourselves and others when women are spoken about simply as vehicles to ensure a Jewish future, remembering that this is a poisonous assumption that both hurts the women who do not or cannot have children and puts the women who hope to in dangerous situations in which their reproductive capabilities are valued above their personhood. And finally, let us most passionately cling to our own narrative, that is the one of this synagogue and in many Jewish communal settings, that Jewish survival does not hinge on Jewish women having as many Jewish babies as they can. It hinges rather on the vibrant celebration of Jewish life and engaging quest for Jewish identity embarked upon by every person and family who walks through our doors, no matter their religious observance, their heritage, their race, their sexual orientation, their gender identity, or their reproductive health and goals. Let us celebrate the Temple Israels of the world who believe in the power of each individual to find his or her own way to a Jewish life. If we stand strong on this high ground, that is about a just and ethical society where every person's humanity is cherished, that is the best treatment for what ails us and is our best chance for the longevity of our people. Amen.